So I would like to introduce Nynke. She is a master student in the Child and Adolescent Psychology Master Program from Leiden University. And she is really strongly attached to the Building for Belonging, but because she has done the first data collection. So she is going to present things about the data collection.
Thank you, Marike, for the lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. So like Marike said, I'm going to be giving a little bit of an update on the data collection that we have been doing for Building for Belonging. So just a quick overview of what I'm going to be talking about right now. Just a quick reminder of the research goals and how these are implemented in the data collection. I'm also going to be talking about how we recruited schools and how the data collection kind of looks like. Then I'm going to be talking about the experience that we had as researchers going to the schools and a little bit of an update on what's next. So I think we all know that the main goal here is that we want to create inclusive school environments. And it is really important to include students' perspectives in that, because these are the students that are in school every day of their lives. They are here for multiple hours, and these are the ones that go to school for that much time and have the most influence has it on these students. And it is also really important to have an insight into the built environment ourselves. And this is an older timeline from the validation study, but it's very relevant for the data collection right now. So it kind of starts off with an intake with the school. So this is mostly getting general information. You talk with the school about how many students do they have, how many classrooms are there, also just information about what for example, the map or the map from the school looks like. And then if the school agrees on participating, you usually have information sessions with the students. However, most of the schools that we have right now, which were 2 schools for the past couple of months, they really liked doing data collection, but they were less excited about the preparation part because that meant losing school hours for education. And they asked for an alternative for the information session. So what we did is make an information video, which was around 3 minutes, and the teacher could show this in class. And yeah, that meant that we didn't have to go to the schools anymore. And that meant that they had a lot more time for their academics, and they could spend more time into data collection. And of course, we also sent information mails to the parents. Very new here, which was not included in the validation study, is that we have an opt-out option. So when parents did not want their child to participate, they could tell us through Qualtrics, instead of giving informed consent by opting in, usually because parents do want the child to participate, but they just forget where the mail is, they forget how to fill it in, they lose the mail, but they still want to participate. And the schools really said that this was an issue that they had with previous studies. So the ethical committee agreed on having an opt-out option instead. Then, of course, we did the administration of the questionnaires, which was per researcher. We had like a classroom. Usually multiple researchers go to the same location at a time. And it took around 45 minutes, so exactly 1 lesson for each class. And researchers were usually here just to answer questions, help with technical difficulties, help with questions on what words mean, etc. And then we did the assessment of the physical school environment by the Autism Proof Inventory, which Rose will be telling us more about later today. But this is basically a checklist where you go through the school and rate different areas of the school. And usually what the schools really like is that you report back to them and you give them a tailored advice. So it's like a report for them, kind of with the results from the study and advice based on that. So this is the information video. I will be showing it in a minute. I'm very sorry for the non-Dutch speakers because it is fully in Dutch. And it was really fun to make this actually, because it's just 3 minutes. We all sat together to make a script. This is a picture of me at the recording studio of Leiden University, recording the voiceover for the video. And it was also really fun because you get experience with making sure that schools, for example, have enough time to show the video in terms of class that maybe doesn't listen. And for example, we gave them extra points of like pauses, so they could make sure to tell the class like, hey, pay attention. Also added subtitles for people who may be hard of hearing, etc. And I can show the video now.
Dag in, dag uit stap jij je schoolgebouw binnen. Zo'n 30 uur per week. En op dit moment, nu je dit filmpje kijkt, ben je er ook weer. Als je zoveel tijd op school doorbrengt, is één ding superbelangrijk: dat jij je prettig voelt op school. Voel jij je op je gemak op jouw school? Kun jij je ontspannen als je pauze hebt? Vanuit de Universiteit Leiden en de Universiteit van Twente doen we onderzoek naar de ervaringen van leerlingen. En daarvoor hebben we jullie nodig. We willen graag weten hoe jij je voelt op school. In dit onderzoek kijken we niet naar de lessen, maar we doen onderzoek naar hoe het is voor jou op school en bijvoorbeeld in de pauzes. Iedereen is anders en wat de een fijn vindt is misschien onprettig voor een ander. Iedere leerling is uniek. Dat betekent dat er verschillen zijn tussen jou en je klasgenoten. Bijvoorbeeld, sommige leerlingen vinden het fijn om tijdens de pauze wat te kletsen met klasgenoten. Anderen zitten misschien liever even rustig met een boek of koptelefoon. Wat is voor jou prettig in de pauzes en kan dit ook binnen jouw school? Sommige leerlingen willen graag op een lekkere drukke plek zitten, bijvoorbeeld de kantine of aula. Maar andere leerlingen kiezen liever voor een rustige plek om hun pauzes door te brengen. Waar zit jij het meest? Wat gaan we nu doen in dit onderzoek? In de eerste plaats gaan onderzoekers rondlopen om te kijken hoe jullie school is ingericht. Hoe ziet de aula eruit? Hoeveel geluid is er in de aula? Hoe zien de gangen en buitenruimte eruit? Daarnaast is het superbelangrijk om te weten wat jullie, de leerlingen, van jullie schoolomgeving vinden en hoe je je daar voelt. Daarvoor willen we een aantal vragenlijsten afnemen. En we hopen dat jullie enthousiast zijn om deze in te vullen, want jouw stem telt. Je kan op die manier laten weten hoe jij je op school voelt en hoe je jouw schoolgebouw ervaart. En misschien heb je specifieke wensen of ideeën hoe het beter kan op jouw school. Ook dat willen we graag weten. En een van de vragen is ook of je een diagnose hebt, zoals autisme, ADHD, dyslexie of hoogbegaafdheid. Het is voor het onderzoek heel belangrijk dat we dat weten, omdat we de stem van neurodiverse leerlingen, zoals leerlingen met ADHD of autisme, extra aandacht willen geven. Wie een diagnose heeft, blijft geheim. Je vult alles anoniem in. Die informatie wordt met niemand gedeeld. Niet met je ouders, niet met je leerkrachten of iemand van school. We kijken niet naar individuele antwoorden, maar alleen wat groepen leerlingen van hun school vinden. Al deze uitkomsten gaan we opschrijven in een rapport. Dat rapport is voor jullie school en geeft duidelijke adviezen hoe jullie schoolgebouw prettiger gemaakt kan worden voor leerlingen. Dus jouw stem kan zorgen voor verandering op jouw school. We hopen dat je mee wilt doen, zodat we kunnen samenwerken voor betere schoolgebouwen. Binnenkort komt een onderzoeker uit ons team langs op jouw school. Als jij ook mee wilt doen, ga je de online vragenlijsten invullen in de klas. Hierin vragen we alle leerlingen wat zij vinden van de school en hoe ze zich voelen op school. Dit duurt ongeveer 1 lesuur. Belangrijk: alle informatie die jij aan ons geeft is vertrouwelijk. Dat betekent dat we jouw antwoorden niet delen met anderen. Niemand weet na afloop wat jij hebt ingevuld. In het onderzoek kijken we alleen wat een hele groep vindt, zonder namen of andere persoonlijke gegevens. Het invullen van de vragenlijsten is vrijwillig, dus je hoeft ze niet in te vullen als je dat niet wil. Ook als je halverwege wil stoppen, mag dat. Je hoeft niets uit te leggen. Samen bouwen we aan een schoolomgeving waar leerlingen blij van worden. Doe jij mee?
Information video, like I said, it's around 3 minutes. We made sure to explain certain words that are maybe harder for students to understand, especially when they're younger. So usually they watch before we came by for the data collection. Sometimes it happened that schools had excursions or they were away for a really long time. And we also always asked before the data collection, did you guys watch the video? If they didn't, we watched it with them right before they started. So when we go into the participating schools that we had for the past few months, we had 2 main schools, which is, I'm just going to call them School A and School B. School A was in Overijssel and School B was in Zuid-Holland. And they were very similar actually in their reasons for participating. And this is a reason that a lot of schools give when they are trying to participate for the study as well. So it's always a general interest in the well-being of students and interest in innovation. Most schools also have renovation plans. So I know that for School A, for example, they have renovation plans in 2028. They want to build an entirely new school. So results from our study would be really interesting to tell people that are trying to make a plan in the architecture for the new schools. And they're also looking for professional growth and reputation. So the two schools that are participating, first school A, it had all education levels. So it was VMBO until VWO, but only the VMBO until MAVO levels could do their examination there, which is not very usual for Dutch education. It was a relatively small school. It was 380 students, and you could also see that because it was a very small school itself. It only had 2 floors, and they had a little box outside, which included leerpleinen. These were also included in the main building, but the box was the biggest one. And leerpleinen were kind of really big areas with clusters of tables like these ones. And they were very multifunctional. So there were areas for studying, areas for classes with more than 60 kids at the same time. But there were also areas that were used for detention, for example. When we look at school B, it had slightly more students, 500, but it was only practice-oriented education. So this is MAVO or VMBO into MAVO. This school was much bigger. So it had 5 floors, but it was really weirdly shaped, actually. It was shaped in a U shape. So if we look at the U, the classrooms were all around the U shape, and then the gap was filled with a little hallway. And these spaces actually had something called at-homes, which were kind of similar to the leerpleinen, but these were actually not academically oriented at all. These were made kind of interior-wise with couches, cushions on the floor, TV. There was a PlayStation at one of them to kind of have a very homely interior. Yeah.
In the U-shaped school, was there a bridge connecting the 2 sides of the U, or did you have to go around?
No. Basically where the gap is right now, that would be the bridge, and that was like a main hallway with elevators and stairs.
How inclusive was the school? Like, how accessible was it for like students in wheelchairs or crutches or?
It was accessible. So they had, for example, elevators for the teachers and elevators for the students. But then you needed a student card to access the elevator for the students, which was harder to get.
Yeah. One other question, which comes to the accessibility thing, because this is something I noticed in a lot of schools that claim inclusivity. Because this is something I've experienced in my own school, so I always have this question. Is there like an alternative like fire exit for students who have to use the lift to go up? Because I remember in my first high school, there was a fire drill once, and there was a kid in my classroom with a wheelchair. And so they have to take the lift to go down to the exit, but then you can't use the lift during a fire emergency. So then we had to like scramble and figure out what to do.
Very good question. I honestly didn't notice one, but I'm going to look at those for a second. Did you notice any?
I'll share a little bit more in my presentation what on some improvements.
Eventually, we determined that the teacher had to like bridle carry the student down, and 2 students had to carry the wheelchair down.
Yeah, that doesn't look very accessible, no. Okay, so when we look at the questionnaires, we had a total of 642 responses. School A had 264 students out of the 380-ish, and School B had 378 students out of the 500, I think. So this is a really high participation rate, I think so at least. And I just included like some of the questionnaires that we used. So it was the very standard questions on age, gender, also whether they had a diagnosis or not of anything, autism, ADHD, etc. Loneliness, of course, we also tested on autism with the AQ50. And well-being, it was also well-being very based on school things. So school belongingness, school climate, and just quality of life. And then we also had some questions about how they perceive their environment. So we let them specify where they like to have their breaks. So it doesn't have to be just in the canteen. And this was very different per school. And then they could tell us how the acoustics were in that area or how they perceived them, but also what the restoration potential was in that area. Yeah.
You asked for the diagnosis.
Yeah.
Right.
But you also asked to fill in the AQ50.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know why we, I think it's, I mean, I do know why we, but I don't know how to explain it the
No, not
best
exactly
way.
right now, because I think,
Maybe that also comes in my presentation.
Yeah,
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you.
Yes,
Julie.
okay.
yeah,
Good question.
yeah, very long answer, I think, but
I have one other question, more so out of curiosity
Mhm.
rather than related to what was talked about. Was there ever a school you encountered that seemed really good and inclusive on paper, but then you go there and it's not?
I think in general, yes. I think sometimes, for example, for school A, I had a really long conversations with that school and where they also gave pointers on, oh, we're really inclusive. We have, for example, we have the doors that have signs on which door to take to go in a certain direction. But then you would go to the school and you would walk there and you saw that all the students would go crisscross through the doors and there was no direction at all.
And I remember in we had to, with the Ministry of Education, we once took a trip to Italy to go to schools that were like the most inclusive schools in Italy. And we went to one that was like, oh yeah, they have a lift, they have like a wheelchair entrance, like with the ramp. And it's like, okay, yeah, the school seems very inclusive on paper. We go there, the lift has been out of order for years. The wheelchair ramp is all broken and like what do you call it, bumpy.
Yeah.
And we walk through it and the hallways are cramped. So it's like, this is not particularly inclusive.
I think I so agree with this, and I think that there's a really big difference on what schools tell us that is very inclusive versus when you walk there, especially if you have the vision of what you know that you're researching on. I agree. So just a little bit on our experiences, what we had. First, we were very glad with the. Oh, I'm sorry. You have a question? Or
Oh, sorry, no.
Oh, okay.
No.
So with the questionnaires, we were really relieved because we had a high participation rate. And of course, there's going to be students who severely do not want to do this at all and they're bored and they're like, no. But most of them were actually really interested and most of them also wanted to contribute. I even had a kid walk up to me that was like, hey, in the advice report for the school, can you also include that we need this and this and this and this? So they were very interested in helping us. Also, it was really fun to see the multiple perspectives, not just between, for example, classmates or classes. Some classes were really interested and wanted to even do additional help, like I said before, with that one student. Other classes were very quiet when filling it in. Other classes were chaotic and they were doing other things in the meanwhile. But it was very fun to see the multiple perspectives also for what they were telling us. Some classes were like, oh yeah, now finally we can work on the canteen area because we don't like it at all. Others were very interested in demolishing certain parts of the hallway that they thought were not good for the school. And I think the most important thing was that we as researchers, as we walked there was a current relevance. It was really a reality check, like I said before with the hallway. They tell us that it's really inclusive until you're walking there as a researcher with your laptop like this, trying to squeeze between the students. And then you imagine to yourself, what if I'm a student here every day and every hour of the day, I have to change classes between these masses of people. So it was really a reality check also for us to see why it was so relevant that we're researching this. Then just quickly, what is next? So more data collection. We have more schools, even one in Amsterdam. And there are some in the area of school A, some in the areas of school B. We're also going to do the Autism Proof inventory more with school A. We still need to do it in the upcoming month. We're also looking into doing the measurement of the environment. So very objective, for example, with sound meters in the cafeteria. So we're trying to work out whether that is possible. And of course, the schools are very excited to use the smartwatches at some point. Yeah, so thank you. And we hope that we can give more updates later on.